Eh? What do you think? Yeah, this is awesome. The music, the visuals, even the trailers before this were really, really cool. This is sick. Yeah, that's what we thought you would say. Glad you like it. Is there something wrong, sir? Oh, yeah, like, this is great. This is beautiful. Don't get me wrong. But I was curious, is the gameplay part of the chapter fun? Like, did you guys focus on that? You did remember to make the gameplay in the video game in the new chapter release fun, right? Right? Oh, look at the time. I gotta go. Well, at least it looks pretty. Hello everyone, a new chapter is upon us. Well, rather, it's kind of like more of a paragraph, but there's a lot in it that makes it kind of feel like an old chapter, and that being all kill comeback. They've done part 2s for IP so far, but not for their own original content. So how did this shape up? We had some concerns coming in from the PTB. Were they addressed? Well, I'll let you know. First off, the main thing that is the primary thing that's coming out of this, which I'm sure is shocking nobody, is that the MINA skin is extremely popular. They have gender bent Trickster over into this Vocaloid character that has a la Glitch Trap come into the realm of Dead by Daylight as a real flesh character. And man, that thing is selling like hotcakes. And you know, respectively, they did a really, really good job on it, especially the Mori. The Mori is amazing because it comes with its own musical track. It's got good camera work. Like, they really knocked it out of the park. Unsurprisingly, the art team always knocks it out of the park, and they do so again with MINA here. However, you're probably here wondering about Trickster themselves, the actual character, because one of the big selling points of this new update is the Trickster rework, and it's been a controversial one. There have been some people saying this is a hard nerf and they made the character even worse and not worth playing anymore, and some people are saying that this is a new A-tier killer that's absolutely amazing. So which one is it? Well, my first thing I will tell you, certainly don't try to play this character on the new map Trickster's Delusion, because that map will not give you an accurate sign of this character's power, but more on that later. I think from my impressions as somebody who only really liked to play the original Trickster when he first came out, didn't mess around too much with main event Trickster, and not a huge Trickster fan in general, I think this kind of undersold and was a little bit underwhelming for a Trickster rework. I think the actual kit itself is really amazing, and it is an improvement, but not to the extent that I wished it was. There are some main pain points that I realized while playing today that were not too fantastic. My ammo count feels extremely low. Even when I'm not spamming and I'm just kind of only throwing 3 or 4 knives in the middle of chase, it feels like every single time I go through a chase, I'm either reloading after said chase or I'm finding myself having to reload in the middle of the chase. At first, I liked the lower ammo count because I feel like it encouraged me to use my power more, accurately instead of just spamming. But even when I wasn't spamming, I was finding myself reloading basically nonstop. And I, at a certain point in the middle of my games, realized that I was spending so much time at lockers that that's where a lot of the gen progress on the map was coming from, is I was just having to constantly stop, start, and it really made the character feel sluggish and slowed down the flow of play. I think something like 40 knives or 44 knives would be a big improvement over 36. I hope they do this. I know, unfortunately, there's been a lot of times where they'll release something and kind of not go back and address it, especially when it comes to something like this, where they've already put in a lot of effort into fixing things up. So I hope they actually go back and adjust these numbers, but that's not the only one we have to talk about today. One of the things I noticed in the PTB was a problem about this character that I think didn't get changed enough when it came to the live servers was the decay rate after throwing knives for a while and you don't hit another one for a little bit, and the movement speed while throwing. While these were buffed, they were only buffed marginally so, and it still leads to really, really punishing situations. I think if there was any sort of word I could use to describe the current Trickster compared to the old Tricksters, they're extremely punishing. You gotta be a good Trickster or else you're going to suffer, because the decay rate, even with good add-ons to help support this, goes down very, very quickly. And the movement speed while throwing knives is similarly really, really frustrating, because I cannot tell you how many times I was throwing knives at a survivor, even while actively hitting said knives, I'd end up like 3 to 5 business days behind the survivor just for using my power. And I think that's kind of the main thing that I really didn't like about this new version of Trickster that has hit the live servers, is it felt like, despite the fact that the whole point of the kit was to encourage me to use my power more instead of just spamming or just relying on main event, it felt like I was often extremely harshly punished for using my power. I think we're kind of reaching this weird kind of double whammy situation where it's okay, well, you can't spam, which is good. I don't agree with encouraging spamming out of this character, but you should throw your knives and can do them a little bit more accurately instead of just spamming. Okay, I'm cool with that. But now it's not enough that you just can't spam. You have to hit almost every single knife consecutively with almost no error, which I feel like Dead by Daylight these days has so many instances of like you have so little margin for error. To have a character that's very much like, okay, well now you have even less of a margin of error. It just kind of feels like an extra little sting, which feels a little rough. Also, to go back to the decay thing, with the rank system now you will actively like decay while throwing knives at people sometimes, which just like feels really weird. It feels like I'm being actively punished for using my power, despite the fact that that's the whole point of this new rework, is to encourage you to use your power more instead of just like spamming and relying on main event. Add-ons still feel like mostly unremarkable. They took away the haste one that I liked a lot, which I'm not a huge fan of, but the add-ons are still kind of eh. I've heard there's been good improvements, but a lot of them are just kind of like eh. So that's interesting. So to summarize with Trickster as a whole, because that was a little bit rambly, is that I feel like current Trickster's kit is technically better than main event Trickster, but it's not the improvement that I was looking for, and it feels really underwhelming. It feels more like I went from like a C tier killer to a B minus killer, which is like technically an improvement, but like I feel like against moderately good teams or teams with, meta perks, this character still has a really, really hard time performing. I think one of the things that this character does succeed at is snowballing. They do that very well. But that's one of those things where you're kind of hoping that the survivors make a mistake. It's not as much you doing something well. I don't know. It just feels kind of just okay. It feels like a very, very okay update that's like technically an improvement, but only in definition, and otherwise it's just like it's lacking its umph. It's lacking a lot of umph to it, which I don't enjoy. I feel like if I had to rank the three versions of Trickster, that being OG Trickster, main event Trickster, and this one, I feel like I would still prefer to go and play the OG Trickster, and then I would play this one. Main event is still in last place because there's main event on people, and that was basically all your identity was. Otherwise you just kind of were in pain most of the time. But I feel like this one, I feel like they just really pulled their punches when it came to the numbers of buffing them to live. They did do the buffs, but they were very minimal. This character still suffers a lot against better players. I do want to say here in the end of this section as a caveat that I've spoken to a couple Trickster mains, and they have said that the reason I may be feeling this way is because they massively increased the skill floor. This character is very inaccessible now, because not only, like I was saying earlier, it's not enough that you have to not spam your knives, but in additionally, there's a lot of like micromanaging of your speed, of your throws. Essentially, it feels to me like if you're not a Trickster main or a Trickster secondary, you're not wanted with this new update, which I definitely, as somebody who mains the Xenomorph basically full time, and then, kind of somewhat main Springtrap to some extent, I don't really have space in my character rotation for another main just to be able to play them consistently well. Now, of course, I, am not a Trickster main, so I'm just kind of like taking their word for it. So I guess we'll have to see how true the skill floor is just really high kind of statement is, but I have been told that, so I didn't want to leave that out. One of the things that was pointed out during the PTB when they were talking about updating the perk descriptions to be far more simple was that the flavor text was gone, the stuff that was in character to make you feel more immersed in the world of Dead by Daylight. Now, a lot of people withheld judgment for that, me included, because it wasn't really like certain yet whether that was just for the PTB and they were going to keep them or what. But now it is hit live and it is confirmed for sure that they have just kind of scrubbed out the descriptions, which is really wild because like it's not like the immersive flavor text was really like bad or distracting. It was only like a sentence or two at most. So I'm not sure like what the rationale with removing those was. I know you're trying to streamline the game to be more like understandable for newer players, but I don't think the flavor text really distracts them or confuses them in any way. This feels like you're just removing cool content from the game for basically no reason. I don't know why you did that. Speaking of perks, by the way, new Pop Goes the Weasel is great. If you missed it, Pop Goes the Weasel is back to flat damage. You may have thought it got nerfed because it went back to 15% as the descriptor, but you got to remember that you do 5% damage whenever you kick a gen period. So that is on top of that. So you're doing a flat 20% damage to the same that you were already doing before, except now it's flat damage, so it's better. If you need a short explanation, flat damage just takes off from the total gen bar, whereas proportional damage is what Pop used to do, only takes it off of the current gen progress, so flat is better. It was actually really cool. I used this for a while on one of my Xenomorph comfort builds today, and I was actually able to consistently stop gens from popping in certain areas I could get it popping. Popping in certain areas by using this perk. It was actually extremely nice. I didn't have to like save it and wait for a gen that had a lot of progress. I could just use it whenever I wanted. It was pretty cool. One of the things that you're probably worried about if you watch the PTB coverage that I did on this version of the patch was that the Wesker changes kind of nuked the character into oblivion. They signed them as like bug fixes, but realistically they were trying to stop the hug text, the insta flicks, the rebounds, all the good stuff, all the high scaling stuff that makes Wesker an enjoyable character, despite the fact that he is very buggy and very power crept. They did actually adjust some of this and fix some of this, but there's a lot of it that's still there. Rebounding, for example, is back. They fixed that. However, stuff like insta flicks, the ability to fly off hills, that is still not there. Now, Mandy did say on the forums that they are working on fixing that, but not all of it would potentially be able to be available in the live release. So let's hope that that stuff is still coming, and this is not just a one-off. Speaking of other characters that got adjustments, Ghoul also got adjusted, and I am happy to report from many Ghoul mains that apparently this is a very, very good patch for them. The things that I personally noticed was that the revaulting that we were really worried about getting removed in the previous PTB version of this release is now in the game, and not only in the game, but kind of solidified as a mechanic. Yes, revaulting is back. If you don't know what revaulting is, Ghoul has this very, very oppressive ability to vault straight after you're using their power, and one of the only ways you could really handle this was to like spin around and vault back under him. They were for some reason going to remove that in the previous patch, but have decided to keep it and make it a firm mechanic, which is really nice. Also, they lowered the stickiness of the reticle that Ghoul uses to, go and get their, their free hit, quote unquote, that makes a lot of people very, very frustrated with facing them, me included. The stickiness now has been reduced to a point where it no longer feels like auto aim for free hits and feels more like, well, stickiness, kind of what it should have been to begin with. So that's really good. I hope we continue to move Ghoul into a place where like the low skill floor is raised a little bit and the high skill ceiling Ghouls really get to shine. But now we get back to the negatives, because I told you we'd get back to this later, but Trickster's Delusion as a map, despite the fact that it's a 20 out of 10, probably the best visual designed map in Dead by Daylight period of all time, like literally perfected, no notes. It is a gameplay disaster. It is a very, very frustrating map, a la like Badham Preschool, Garden of Joy, that killer mains will hate going to. Why? Because there are, I believe the number I keep seeing and the numbers I've experienced myself are 4 god palettes on this map, in addition to multiple god windows. I keep saying 2 to 3, and that is the number I'm going to settle on. In addition to this, even if they're not actual firm god palettes or god windows, there's often really troubling setups that are like half god palettes. I'm sure you guys have seen out there on Dead by Daylight plenty of palettes that only have like a box or 2 on one side and then a giant wall on the other. Those are half god palettes, meaning that if that's dropped when they try to loop it on the short side, it's extremely weak. But if they drop it and then they loop it on the wall side, it's extremely strong and basically a god palette, because they can just keep running around that long wall, come back, vault, and you basically won't catch up to them unless you have a specific power or perk that allows you to do so. I cannot tell you how many times today, there was one really pinnacle situation of this where I had a David that was death hook and I was going to get him out of the game, and it was at 1 gen, so I really needed somebody out of the game. And then he went into an alleyway, dropped a god palette, and I was like, okay, I'll kick that. And then he immediately went into another god palette, so he got to get away. That was really cool. That happened again when I was playing Xenomorph later to test out the new map for Xenomorph, so I could update the Xenomorph guide, where I was chasing this Claudette. She dropped a god palette and then dropped straight into a half god palette, and despite the fact that she didn't do anything skillful that entire time, she just pre-dropped palettes, she bought enough time for gens to get done, despite the fact that all she did was pre-drop palettes. This map feels like it is a symptom of just like the last year in that video that I just made talking about survivor skill, where it was made for a survivor that doesn't want to think and just wants to throw things early and forget about it, or vault something early and forget about it. This is a map that if you're a bamboozle lover, you're gonna have a great time, because you kind of need it in a lot of situations on this map. Otherwise, you're kind of gonna be in pain. And it's not even just like all sunshine and rainbows and this is survivor heaven, because I've noticed that there is a consistent 3 to 4 gen that likes to spawn on the market side of the map, or festival, whatever that happens to be. So if you're facing somebody like Singularity, for example, and they just set up there from the beginning of the match, you're going to have a bad time on the survivor end. And honestly, I don't know about you as a killer main, I don't like sitting in one area. I like to go around the map and chase people and have a good time. So I don't feel like I should be forced to just sit there on one side of the map. That feels lame and boring. So this is kind of like what the skit at the beginning of the video was referring to, is that it's like, yeah, this map aesthetically is amazing, but it kind of felt like the guy who was supposed to come in and balance this and make sure it was fun for gameplay has just been on vacation for the last month, because he clearly didn't look at this and get it done, because, oh man, the gameplay is nails on a chalkboard to play for Trickster's Delusion. So good luck out there. Now, the survivor perks, I don't really hate any of them, but I don't really have I don't really feel like I like them a whole lot either. I went through them more in depth in the PTB version of this, and they haven't changed much to live. The only one I kind of don't like, that I think is kind of like a red flag and something we need to keep an eye on, is the 5 moves ahead. This is the one that not only gives you diet windows of opportunity, which is a famously well-designed perk that obviously makes gameplay more healthy, but it also allows you to drop pallets even faster, further encouraging the pre-drop W key kind of gameplay. Today, I definitely noticed this. I had at least 5 times the pre-drop hold W gameplay that I usually do, which is obviously something that's great and fun and very, very interactive. I've also seen this really, really funny strategy of like the ability to like get in a very tense situation, pre-drop with 5 moves ahead and then lithe over it to get away, which is also really, that's a creative use of that. I didn't think of that, but man, that's annoying. The one perk that I do despise is not one of the new perks, but is a reworked older perk, and that being Yunjin's teachable Fast Track. If you didn't know, Fast Track got buffed to be an aggressive gen rush perk a la BNP. It is essentially a mini BNP. Every time somebody gets hooked, you get to get 2 charges off a gen, which means if you are being a fair or healthy killer and spreading your hooks and not hooking the same person back to back 3 times, you are giving essentially a mini BNP on multiple gens. Yeah, this survivor perk quite literally benefits from you playing nice on killer. Like if you play on nice on killer, this perk punishes you, which is like, ooh, that's not good design. So this perk really encourages you, if you sense that it is in your game, if you see somebody with toolbox and may potentially running a full gen rush build, honestly, the right answer is to hard tone somebody out or just slug. You know, things that are infamously things people like facing. So I don't like the design of this perk, not only for the BNP style effect, but also for the fact that it encourages unhealthy gameplay inherently. Like, do you see my gripe here? Art team always kills it. Gameplay usually leaves a lot to be desired. On a positive note, though, the whole fog vial snafu thing, that's finally been fixed, I think, in my opinion. Their new effect is that they obscure on the outside if you're not in it, and once you're in it, you can see just fine, which eliminates that thing that I used to have to deal with and many players had to deal with, which was dealing with motion sickness while you were trying to navigate through the fog vial. I always will say this, and I know a lot of accessibility, anti-accessibility nerds, losers, by the way, that like to say, like, oh, it's supposed to be obscuring, that's the point. I should be able to play a video game without getting sick in real life. And it's not just me, it's a lot of people. So yeah, people are allowed to have accessibility options that makes the game available to them, and excluding people because of their physical situations that they can't help is loser behavior. Have some damn empathy, you animal. Also, speaking of accessibility, this is the chapter that rolled out the ability for us to adjust our own auras. But honestly, while I think this is a W and it is pretty nice, I do think that, like, I think there's not the ability to adjust enough things. Like, there's a lot of objects that are missing, like the aura of lockers that you can't change, even though that's really important for a lot of killers. They also have really adjusted for a lot of the fact that a lot of perks change the aura colors of these specific things, and there's no way to change that either. So if you run, like, for example, Eruption, and you like your gens to be yellow, there's no way to tell which gen is affected by Eruption. You just kind of have to deal with that, and there's no way to affect it. It'd be nice if we had a little section that was like gen aura perk, perk aura, or add-on aura change or something like that, because it's just kind of not accounted for, which sucks. I think overall here at the end of everything, if I had to give this chapter a rating, I'd probably give it like a 6 out of 10. It's good, but a lot of the stuff that's good about it is really underwhelming and feels like there could have been a lot more polish outside of the art team. Art team, you killed it. Art team, like 3,000 out of 10. You guys, this is your best work. I mean this like wholeheartedly. This is your best work. The map, the skins, the trailers, the music, everything about this, you knocked out of the park and you did your best work, and we are so proud of you for that. However, on the gameplay end, a lot of stuff was really underwhelming. The Trickster rework was technically an improvement, but not by a whole lot. The map is beautiful, but kind of a nightmare to play on for one specific role. I just wish that both the art team and like the actual game design team were kind of on the same page here. And if it was, this could have been like the easiest, like 10 out of 10, knock it out of the park, a la something like the Stranger Things Part 2 that was also really awesome. However, instead it's just kind of like this mixed bag where it's like, well, aesthetically this is amazing, but there's a lot of things to nitpick and get grumpy about when it comes to the actual game and game mechanics itself. Overall, I think it's not like too offensive. It's not like, oh, a terrible chapter. Like I said, 6 out of 10. It's technically positive, but I think it's just kind of like a big step down from their polish with Stranger Things Chapter 2. Then again, they did delay that chapter, so maybe that's why it was so polished. And that makes you think, why can't we delay that schedule a little bit so we can get that level of polish all the time? Yeah, that is it for me. What did you guys think of All Kill Comeback, the All Kill Chapter 2, Trickster Chapter 2, whatever you want to call it? Do let me know down in the comments below. But other than that, that's going to be it for today's video, friends. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you in the next one. But if I do not, I will see you when I see you. Goodbye.